Hi guys, and welcome back to another Pause for Security podcast. I am Michael, obviously the host of the channel, but obviously I do have my co-host, UK Security 101, or Aaron, whichever way you want to call him. He is here with me, and he's going to be taking the lead. So I will pass over to Aaron, who is going to take the lead for this podcast.
Right, so bear with me this morning, guys. Obviously, I've just finished shift. Michael is bushy-tailed because he's had a full night's sleep and he's giving me a very smug smile at the minute. Basically, just wanted to sort of, it's been a while. We haven't done a podcast in a while, so just give you guys a catch-up of what's been going on. Obviously, Michael, you've been away on holiday. I'm assuming you enjoyed that thoroughly.
I did. We were speaking just then about having a break and like the holidays and that. It's about having a break away from the dog and the job, not just the job, because if I took a week off and stayed at home, it's still looking after the dog and things like that. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed being able to hand the dog over to his grandparents and just saying, right, it's yours responsibility, I'm off, I'll see you in 2 weeks. So yeah, I enjoyed the break away from the dog as much as away from the job. But yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it. So
yeah, it's always good to take a break, mate. As I say, de-stress. It gives you more focus when you come back, and again, it's just one of them things you need to do from time to time. I've just been ridiculously busy. Obviously, as a company, we've had a lot of work going on, so I've been here, there, and everywhere. I'm still doing my level 3 teaching qualification, so I can become a trainer. So I'm in the midst of doing that at the moment, as well as other qualifications and courses. So yeah, that's been pretty much what I've been up to. I've been smashing my head against the desk.
I didn't know you was doing your qualification for becoming a trainer. Is that becoming a NIP2 trainer, I assume?
No, so basically, the qualification I'm doing at the moment is a level 3 teaching qualification. So that will qualify me to teach in like any sector, and then I've got to go and get separately qualified for what I want to teach.
Okay.
If I want to become a NIP2 trainer, I've got the option. I'm probably going to go more down the route of emergency medical training, just so I can certify most of the people that work for us in our company and stuff like that. And I've also got a passion for that as well. I've always found that it's good knowledge to have, in an emergency situation, especially when it comes to like your own family and stuff like that. You don't want to not know what you're doing. You know what I mean? In that bad situation, them first few seconds count in that sort of scenario, shall we say.
Okay.
And again, guys, please bear with me. I am dying. So yeah, there's a few things me and Michael wanted to talk about. We've discussed just beforehand, before coming on, as you can probably tell, not very well rehearsed. Michael, you wanted to sort of go along the lines about becoming a dog handler. There was a few things that were bothering you in regards to how you played it, I believe.
Yeah, so I was speaking to someone, as you are aware, and probably other people are aware, is that I get a lot of messages from people that are getting into the industry, maybe already in the industry, etc. And just speaking to numerous people. I'm talking like a dozen people over the last sort of year and that. And what it kind of occurred to me is that the way in which I got into the industry and the way in which I put it over in my videos, I've always come over as how easy it was. And for me, it was very easy because I knew a managing director of of Prestige Guarding. So I knew someone that already owned a company in it, who obviously had a trainer that he could refer me on to, who could tell me how to get my SIA license. And obviously that it was just a very easy procedure for me. It was a case of go and see him. He says, okay, this is the bloke we want to go and see to train the dog. Obviously go and see him. It was obviously very easy with him about doing my training and different things like that. And then obviously once I passed, I just walked straight into Prestige Guarding, and within a couple of weeks I was on a site. So for me, it has been a very easy process. But what has occurred to me over a period of time is that people come with me with issues about will I be able to find a company, how do I find a trainer, and different things like that. And I said to someone I felt a bit guilty about the way in which I was perceiving it to be as easy, and other people wasn't finding it as easy. To which they said, and probably correctly, is that I can only give over my experience of it. If my experience is different to someone else's, that's not my fault. But yeah, I've just found that lately becoming a dog handler, people have had trouble getting their SIA license. Like there was someone in my Discord that was waiting for months for his license to come through. I've had people lately. There's someone I've been speaking to recently and been helping out and things like that about. He asked what like body camera, so I've helped him get a body camera. He's asking me about training. He asks different questions all the time, and he's actually been turned away by 2 NIP2 trainers for no reason whatsoever. That he hadn't even gone to a session, and like he had been turned away from 2 NIP2 trainers, and then I got him a contact with Armitage K9, and he's going to go and do his NASDO that way. So I've managed to give him a contact in order to get the training. But it's the fact that he's already been turned away from NIP2 already. I just wanted to sort of have I'm aware that the way in which I've got in and the way in which I work seems to be very different to others. But I was interested. Obviously, you have been a dog handler, and now you're in the office and sort of running the other side of that. And I was a little bit interested as well into speaking to you about how it works for you getting in, to see if it's similar to me or similar to the way it's happened with other people. And obviously now being at the desk side, how you manage people when they first come in, or how you manage people's working patterns. Do they tell you, or do you offer?
So we'll break that down. Obviously, the first part would be about becoming a dog handler itself, getting the qualification. Now, for me, it was quite different from what you went through. So when I became a dog handler, I'd already been a security officer for 5 years, so I had a wealth of experience underneath me. So I had that going for me. But like, in order to even just get an assessment with my trainer, I had to have two recommendations from 2 different dog handlers, as well as the company owner I was working for, just to get an assessment.
You're NIP2, not NASDO, aren't you?
Yeah. And yeah, basically, a lot of people who train will sort of put their own personal barrier to taking people on. If you turn up to a trainer and say, I decided to become a dog handler, and I've done some training, I've come for my first assessment with my dog, and then they'll say, how many years security have you done? And you say none. Odds are they will turn you away straight away, because they will go, how can I, even if I train you, how can I trust you and put my name to you to go out there and do a job that you have no experience in, and now I'm going to send you out there with potentially a weapon? And I can understand that. It seems unfair at the time, but at the same time, I look at it at the other point is, if you do something wrong, their training's going to come into question. They may get asked to be summoned to court to say, when they've completed their assessments with you, they've done their reoccurrence training with you. And I can't blame them in a way. If you've got no experience in security, it used to be a rule, if you haven't, the 1 badge rule, if you had less than 3 years in security, you would not become a dog handler. It was just that simple. Once you get past your first badge, that's it. You were eligible, as long as obviously you had a good report and didn't have any black marks on your record from the company or anything like that. And then obviously moving on to like the other question about how managing stuff, it's difficult, because most dog handlers that I work with are experienced guys. They're not guys who have just went and got a dog and become a dog handler. Most guys within our company will have came from the ranks. They will have came from being close protection, being a door supervisor, being multi-site, doing all different types. So they'll be vastly experienced already. So having things like showing them how to do patrolling, showing them how to do systems and stuff like that, it's the exact same stuff, just with the dog. So they don't really need that. If there was someone who's particularly struggling, like, we're that type of company where if you contact us and say, I'm not sure of this, or I'm unsure of this, I don't know how to do this, don't know how to do that, or I'm worried about this, we've got the ability to, send a supervisor out to you, or send an operations manager out to you, and they'll come out and spend the night, and they won't leave there until you know what you're doing. That's what a good company would do. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of them about. Obviously, Prestige must be one of them, because they take their employees' situations into account by knowing what days they need to work and what days they can't work. I'm very much the same. I'm lucky in that ways that my boss understands that I need to have certain days off, and there's certain days that I will put 100% effort in. And if I have to be up for 48 hours, I will do, because I'm here to help the company as much as I can. And I think it sort of falls into that bracket of being valuable and then being green. If you're a green dog handler who's also a green security guard, you are going to struggle to find work. And even when you get the work, you're going to struggle anyway, because you've not done the job already. I would advise people to do security before they become a dog handler. I mean, that's just my personal thing. It's you wouldn't get a police dog handler who's not been a copper for a few years first. I don't know what your opinion is on that, Michael. Then,
but I mean, I agree and I disagree. I mean, obviously, I was in security before becoming a dog handler, but only as in an office on the system side of it. So I never done patrolling and different things like that. But I think because of the amount of time I took to pass my course, I'd done lots of patrol training at obviously security dog training. It wasn't a case that I was there for a week and that was it. I'd done sort of 6 months of patrol training and different types of patrol training, and I think I learned to do it like that. But then obviously just them couple of shifts with the dog handler when I first started did really help. So I get what you mean about you saying about being a security officer first and learning to patrol without a dog, and then it's basically exactly the same with a dog. But I do agree. But no, I do think that you should be open to green handlers coming into, or green security staff coming in and being able to teach them reasonably quickly on how to patrol with a dog, because at the end of the day, I think me and you both know it's not rocket science. I mean,
no.
But there are ways in which you want to do it to stay as safe as possible and different things like that. But that should come from a trainer. A trainer should be able to explain how to patrol different sites safely. For argument's sake, if you're walking down a path with doors either side, making sure that you kind of stay in the middle, don't be too close to any doors as you're walking past, especially if they're open. Different things like that. I don't think you can. You can say that you need to have some security experience before becoming a dog handler, but I think if you spend long enough doing enough training, speaking to enough people and that, I don't see why a green handler can't be competent within a week of actually starting work, as long as they get the help that they need to start off with. And I think this is where I'd say mine's very different, is that I said that in my first couple of shifts, I had someone to literally walk me through it, but to the point where they'd say, right, this is when I first got there, he's like, walk me around the whole site without the dogs, just walk around and say, like, these are all the areas you need to look out for, etc. This is the way in which I patrol and all that. And then he would leave me for 6 hours. He'd say, right, you know what you're doing, I'll leave you for 6 hours. And then in 6 hours, he'll come back, say, how are you finding it? And I'll say, oh, I've got this issue, I've got that issue. I'll say, no, it's absolutely fine. I think just having someone there at the very start just settles someone into the working life. But yeah, I agree and I disagree with you. I understand about having some experience, and it obviously makes it a lot easier. But I don't think you can turn away people just because they don't have patrolling experience, because they should have got that through their security dog training. And I think that's what I find not frustrating, but I find when people are talking about security dog training is they're always thinking about, oh, I have to teach the dog to bite, or I have to teach the dog to do standoffs. And training's not about that. Training is about you being taught as a team to patrol for you as a security dog handler yourself. I spoke to someone who had to go to a trainer as part of their CT or their continuation training. They had to go and see a certain instructor that was attached to the company. And I said to him, like, oh, like, did you at any point sit down with all the other handlers and the trainer and have like a discussion or do like a Q&A? And he was like, no, we just turned up, we done some agility, we done some protection work, we done a patrol, and then that was it. Well, to me, that's not continuation training, because yes, you've continued the training of the dog, but you haven't continued the training of the handler. Continuation training isn't just about making sure you've got the best dog ever. It's about making sure the dog handler knows what he's doing, make sure he knows about all of the laws and the acts that you have to be part of, but also just being able to share stories. I found that the best part of becoming a security dog handler was sitting down for however long it was and just talking to people about experiences, about different things. But look, you would have someone that's been doing it for 5 years, someone that's been doing it for 10 years, someone that's been doing it for 25 years, and everyone having a different story about different things. And I think that's how you learn to grow. And you, even without patrolling on a site, I felt like when I first turned up, just by spending that time with them people and listening about them stories and that, I felt like I knew how to patrol. I felt like I knew how to do stuff while staying safe because of the stories and the chats I've been having with people. So I think it's the people that you surround yourself with, and the people and the information that the people at training give you. I think that's kind of worth some patrolling experience just by listening to some of them stories. I'm not saying
I'm not saying that, like, when I say that people should have experience, I'm not saying that a person could not, come into this industry and not be, I've never been a security officer. What I'm saying is that like you, for example, right, before you got qualified, you put the hours in beforehand to be prepared. Then you've got qualified. Then you've went to a company, you've got a job. And then when you've turned up, you've got initial site training, which is to acclimatize you to the site and how it runs. And then you look at your site instructions to get a second brief if you forget anything. Now, that is perfectly fine, and you're good at what you do and you've learned. However, if you're someone who goes and gets a qualification, goes on a site, gets a site brief, has site instructions in front of them, and then still turns around and says, I don't know what I'm doing, you're not going to have a job for very long. That's my point. It's, as you said, it's not rocket science. I could go on a site, read the site instructions, and not have to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And that is the problem that we have, is that people will go and do that. They'll just go and do the course thinking that's it. And then what they forget is that the moment they turn around and say, I am a qualified NASDU or NIP2 dog handler, or BIPTA for that matter, they're turning around and saying to that company that I'm trained to do the job. I don't need your help. I know what I'm doing. So it's swings and roundabouts, really. I mean, as I said, you put the hours in before you came in, so you were better prepared. And then obviously, again, speaking to people who are very experienced in the industry always helps. It's always good to get someone else's opinion, learn from other people's mistakes, and then it stops you from making them. And then, you know, it can do nothing but help you. But yeah, I very much agree with a lot with what you're saying. Is, yeah, it is a shame that some green handlers get tarnished with the same brush. Some people are not very much aware that they need to train before they go and do their exam. They see the exam as the training, which is a common mistake. You know, a lot of people do it.
But I think, to be honest, I think if I turn up to my trainer and he said, right, we're going to do 60 hours in a week, and then you're going to pass your course, and then you can go and work your dog. To me, as a green handler, I would have said, okay, that's great, let's crack on. Like, that's the way in which I would have done it. It's only the fact that my trainer said, no, your dog's not going to be ready. We need to do some training before we start doing the NASDO, etc. Making sure I had SIA license and all that. But it's because my trainer turned around to me and said, right, we're going to take a long time to do this because it's COVID as well and things like that. And you've got the time to put the training in. We're going to take our time and do it. It's not going to be a case of you just turn up and in a week I'm going to give you a test and do it that way. I'm not a great fan of these sort of intense 60-hour courses for people that have never had an SIA license before. I know it's kind of, they want to get people into the industry quickly. They have a feeling that people aren't going to take 4 to 6 months to train in order to do this. So they think, well, we have to make it easy for them. Therefore, we can give them like a week's intense course. They can pass the test and then they can start working. I understand that, but I'm not a great fan of it, of people that have not been a security guard before, because I don't feel like in that week's course, you're going to get enough information, enough experience, enough time to chat with people. Because on these week intense courses, it's normally a lot of green handlers. So the people that you're surrounded with are in the same boat as you. So I think you have to, I'm not a great fan of these week intense because I don't feel like you learn enough quick over a period. It's kind of like a rushed in. I mean, let's for example take driving. Let's say driving, for example. So you get a 18-year-old kid, and you say, right, it's your birthday. We're going to give you a week's intense course, and then I'm going to put you in for your driving test. Would you expect that 17-year-old in that week to have enough driving experience to then for them to pass the test and then be out on the road themselves? I would rather give them 2, 3, 4 months of lessons, then let them have their test, and then in say 5 months from their birthday, be out then driving on their own, rather than like a couple of weeks or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Like I see it as very much as that, is that you have to learn over a period of time with experience. And I'm not talking about even site experience. I'm just talking about training experience where loads of different scenarios can be thrown at you, loads of different types of patrol or different type, like the trainer hiding in different types of places can be thrown at someone. Over the course of like 3-4 months, you can get all of that experience, where in a week it can be a little bit crash bang wallop. Like, so when the handler goes in, he's like, well, this is the only thing that can happen, or that's the only thing that could happen. Yeah. When in real life, lots of different things can happen.
100%, mate. As I say, you can never judge what's going to happen. Life is unpredictable. I learned that very quick when I went through my training with my trainer. The sneaky got me with a good one when I was doing scenario training. So one of the scenarios was I was working on basically working a site, but it had a public right of way going through the site, so people could walk through. And I've come across a person that stood in the dark, they're wearing all black clothing and their faces covered. What you do? So I went straight in, walked over, I've shouted, security officer, trained dog, stay where you are. Please identify yourself. And they've not done anything, they've not moved. And then I've got the dog to bark, and I've kicked it up to the point where I'm the dog, his teeth baring now and he's going forward. And then he said, right, stop, right, you failed. I said, why is that? He said, he's deaf.
Yeah, I had that one. Someone threw that one at me.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like I say, that's like that. Like I've only had that once, like that kind of scenario. They throw different ones at us, but like that was one they did throw at us. And like, if you miss that training session, then that's it. And if you're doing like a week's intense course, unless they specifically do that, like you're not gonna get it. But yeah, like,
you wouldn't think of that, would you? You generally just, it wouldn't not crush it unless you've done like a little bit of training and you remember in the back of your head that situation where you're going, why is this person not listening to me and why is he still walking away? Is he just ignorant? And then in the back of your head you go, he could be deaf. But you wouldn't have that if you didn't spend that time training.
Yeah, they threw that one at me, and he was literally just walking around, and I was like, why is he just ignoring me? And then it was, I think in the end I sort of waved, and he looked at me, and then I started doing like some of the hand gestures and things like that. And then I asked him after, I was like, why did you only look at me when I waved? He went, I was deaf. I was like, but it was I only waved like out of frustration, because I was just thinking to myself, he's just not paying attention to me. How, without throwing a rock at him, how am I going to get his attention? You know what I mean? So I just like made a hand gesture and waved, and then he looked at me straight away. I was like, right, that must have been some of it, but it did. But
so you played it off like you meant to.
Yeah, but I was standing there. I was standing there for a good 3 minutes trying to get his attention. 3 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but if you stand somewhere for 3 minutes and try and get someone's attention, that is a long time. And he literally just ignored me, and he was just walking up and down, just ignoring me. And I was like, this is doing my head in. But but now it is something that you would think about.
Yeah, 100%. That frustrated me so much, that situation, because like I kept thinking to myself, it's like, what is he getting at in this scenario? It's like I'm walking forward, and at this point now, this person's like proper moving away from me. He's ignoring me. He's not stopping, and then I've got to the point where now I'm going after you, and I'm going to stop you. And then he was like, what was going through your head? And I was like, well, in all honesty, mate, all that was going through my head is innocent people don't run. What's your opinion on these the changing with the licensing now? So they brought it in where you've got to have like a medical certificate to the equivalent of your badge, and then you've also got to have their new upskill training as well, depending on what badge you have.
What's this, the first aid kind of stuff, is it?
Yeah. So the first, so you got to have a first aid. You need to have a first aid certificate now to get your SIA license.
Yeah. So this is something that I thought about the other day, because if you like my how much video is probably one of my most popular videos, and obviously that was me explaining, like I was a couple of months into the job or whatever it was, and I just explained how much it cost me to get to where I was. So like 120 hours of training, how much that cost, how much my SIA cost, and things like that. And in that video, I obviously say that I paid £200 odd to get licensed in order to get my SIA license. Obviously now you need to, part of that SIA training is obviously getting a first aid certificate. So I thought about maybe doing like an update to the how much video, because just to explain that obviously now it costs more than what I was obviously paying, because you've got to pay for your first aid course, etc. I think it's a good thing in terms of, like I say, so when I passed mine in, what was that, 2020, I passed my SIA. After that came in that you needed to have the license, so needed to have the first aid. So obviously when I go to renew my license in 2023, I will need to have an up-to-date first aid license in order to get my new license, my renewal, etc. And I think it is a good thing. I think it's important that security, especially with a lot of security that work alone, or they work with the public, etc. If you're a security guard and you're working on the door of Tesco's, I think it is important that you have some form of first aid, because you're always going to be around the door or the shop floor. The first aid person for that shop might be on lunch, they might be out the back. So I think it's important that someone that is always going to be around on the shop floor or wherever it is has that first aid. It's an interesting one with dog handling, I find, because if obviously if someone hurts themselves in an accident or whatever it is, and different things like that, obviously you want to do some first aid, etc. Like, let's say you're working with another dog handler and he falls over, cuts himself or whatever it is, and like they'll probably do it themselves, but you can give them some first aid, etc. But in terms of let's say a dog bite. So let's say that there's been a serious situation in the terms that you've had to use the dog to protect yourself from an attack. Now, you've got someone that obviously requires some first aid because they've got a dog bite, and it is your job as the security officer. Your job is the welfare of that person until the police or an ambulance turned up or whatever it is. Once you've found that person on site, they're your responsibility. And let's say serious situation, you've had to use the dog. Now, what do you do in that situation? Because you've got someone that's got obviously some puncture wounds from the dog, but you know this person is aggressive. Do you tie the dog up and then go and give them first aid? I wouldn't personally. I don't. If someone that is already tried to be aggressive with you, I don't think I'll be wanting to tie my dog up and then go and help that person in terms of my own safety. Not the fact that I don't want to help them, it's in terms of my own safety. So what do you do in that situation? Do you give them the bandage themselves and talk them through how to do it, or
you can do a couple of things in that scenario. So the dog, obviously the dogs went on because this person has been so violent that it has got you to a point where you felt your life was threatened. So obviously, yeah, you wouldn't want to put the dog away and now give this person first aid. You can either do a couple of things. So you can tell the person if there's quite a lot of blood coming from the area, if it's on the forearm, you can tell the person to raise their arm above the head, put their hands on their bicep and clamp down to stop the blood from coming out, and that will reduce the bleeding for a certain amount of time. Then when the police get on site, it is your responsibility, because your dog's bit and you are the expert at that point. You need to go and examine that wound, give it, administer first aid if they allow you to, and you need to turn around to the police as well and say, if it's deep enough, this person needs to go to hospital, and he needs to have a tetanus shot, because otherwise it's going to come back on you. If the police say no, and you go, fine, well, it's on body cam, so it goes to court, you can deal with it. The other one is what you said. If you don't have the option of any way of restraining them, or the situation's too dangerous, chuck them a med kit and say, sort yourself out. You've gave them the opportunity to administer first aid to themselves. You've also got the other option, is that if you're cuff qualified and you've got handcuffs on you, you can simply turn around to them and say, do you want first aid? And if they say, yeah, I'm in a lot of pain, I want first aid, you can say, right, turn around, put your hands behind your back, and I'm going to put you in mechanical restraints. And if they disagree with you, you just say, right, well, unless these go on, I'm not giving you first aid. And at that way, they've also allowed you to put the handcuffs on your own accord. If they start getting aggressive after that, put them to the floor and keep them there.
I mean, the one thing I wouldn't do, like I said, is I wouldn't tie the dog up.
Yeah.
Unless you can see that it's like a life or death situation. But even then, I'll probably just down the dog. That's why I've seen someone sent me a video the other day, and it's important training as well, is that they was downing the dog, going up and doing a search, and the first time they was doing a search, and then the decoy become active and the dog came in to protect. But then the second one, he downed the dog, went and done the search, walked back to the dog, and then obviously the person could come up, shake their hand, etc. I think that's important training, because I still wouldn't want to down the dog, even in a life or death situation, because you don't know who else is about. So if it is a life and death situation, good training is to be able to down a dog and be able to go and treat that person whilst the dog stays there, because that's the only time that I would let go of the lead and the dog in order to help someone. If you can see someone is bleeding out or whatever it is, and you have to act on it, because like I say, the welfare of that person is your responsibility until the police or whatever get there. So if it is a life or death situation, then you do need to act, because obviously you want to try and save, no matter what someone's done. You never want someone to die. Like whatever's happened normally isn't worth it. And even for you, the difference between someone dying and someone living is massive in a court. So even if it's proven later that you didn't act in the correct way, the difference in your prison sentence between someone living, someone dying is going to be massive as well. So but yeah, like I say, I'd never tie the dog up, but if it's a life or death situation, you obviously need to try and do something to prevent.
Yeah, I've always been in two minds when it comes to doing like downing a dog with a search and stuff, because when you're conducting a search, it's kind of weird, because you think to yourself, right, yeah, the dog is under control because I'm using a verbal command, but at the same time, I'm not attached to the lead. So am I now not in accordance with the Guard Dogs Act? Because I'm now no longer attached to that lead. If that dog wanted to, he can. You know, it's
I think that's where the words of under control come from, because I mean, if I down my dog, I can be in control of my dog as long as he's staying there and he comes when I tell him to come. That is under control. I understand what you mean about he could break that, but if you do enough training to the point where the dog knows he can't break that down, then he is under control, because he understands that he can't do it. I understand what you mean in terms of if someone becomes reactive, he can then take the decision to, right, I'm having a go. I understand that, but like I say, life or death situation, I wouldn't be down. I would down the dog and then go and help, but I would never tie him up, because like I say, someone could be half faking that they've got a serious injury. You tie the dog up, go over to them, and someone walks around the corner with something in their hand and gives you a clout. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think that's the important thing. Is just because you have to really assess what's going on before tying a dog up or whatever it is, because like I say, someone could be faking an injury. You go over to help, someone walks around the corner with something in their hand, gives you a clump, game over.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. Again, like I wouldn't tie a dog up either. If your dog's, if you've done training and you are, you've put the time in, and a dog is a healthy balance between 50% pet, 50% working dog, and it's been socialized. To be fairly honest, you could have that dog still attached to you on a lead, even with the lead slung, and down your dog next to the person while you're dealing with them. Because at the end of the day, if the person's moving about and a dog's under control, as long as that person's not being violent towards you, the dog shouldn't react. You just should sit there and observe. The other option is, not a lot of people do it, more popular over in the States, is if you did get into that situation and you weren't confident about taking your dog forward to be close to a person while you're administering first aid, put them in a cage, but have a electric lock detacher.
So I was gonna ask you about this, whether you'd ever heard, because I've not known any cages to sort of have it. I've never met someone with cages that has it, that has like a button that you can have on your keys, in which you could press and it would just release the door of the cage.
I will try and find out where I've seen them, but you can get, it's basically, so if you've got a cage that's got like the nut, like the L latch, that comes out, you can get like a magnetic pulley, like a wire pulley. So you put it over that and then you attach it to the cage. And then when you press the button, the pulley yanks itself back, and then
Right.
yanks the lever open.
Are they like the trans canine cages? Is it like them ones?
Might be. I don't know. I haven't looked at trans canine cage in a long time.
Because they like I say, they have a little latch, and then you push it, and it just flips down. So
oh no! Probably like yours then. The
right,
the springs.
Yeah.
The spring ones, you've got to pull them. Obviously, because it counteracts with the metal cord, so
Okay.
it pulls it straight. Yeah. But again, it's not a bad option. I mean, having that would be very nice, especially if you're away from the vehicle. You know the dog's secure, you know the dog's safe, but the boot's open.
Yeah.
And if someone runs up behind me now and hits me, my life's threatened. So boom, hit the button. But obviously, guys that don't substitute gear for training, listen to what Michael said. Put the training in. If your dog's well trained enough, you shouldn't be in any issues dealing with that situation.
So
we went maybe off track, haven't we?
So is there any other changes to licensing other than that first aid?
So the upskilling courses, and I'm not too sure because it's weird because I hold a close protection license, and I think I have to do the equivalent qualification to what I originally did when I did my course, which was FPOS, first person on scene. And not to put too fine a word on it, fucking expensive. Yeah, very. Probably more than the badge is worth. So that I might possibly have to go and do that again, or like a near equivalent of that to keep my badge. I think I don't know. I think it's a good idea that they're bringing that in as a standard where you have to have a qualification. However, I think they went about it the wrong way. I think they should have made it a mandatory part of the courses. So like if you go and do upskill training for your badge, you do an upskill training every year, you do your first aid. Or every 3 years, you do your first aid at the same time. All part of the course. If you get your license, if you actually go and do your license, it's part of the course, part of the core criteria. You don't have to go and get it before you can do your license.
I think with the first with the SIA now, let's say you do your security guarding license. It used to be 4 days. I think it is now 5 days, and like 1 day is the first aid. I think they just added a day to a lot of the courses. Because I'm not 100% sure. You might know better than me. The door supervisor courses, did they used to be 5-day courses?
To be honest, mate, I can't put my finger on it. So I did my door course when I was 18 years old when I did my door. My door license was my first badge. And it was like, what was it? It was a week long when I did it, 7-day course.
Was it really?
But I've known people that have done it, but they've said to me, that it's gone down. It's not taking a week anymore, and people.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure in the Discord, someone the other day they just booked up for a door supervisor license, and it was a 6-day course. But I had a feeling that they dropped it down to like 5, but it's now gone back up to 6 with the first aid. I believe that's true. But yeah, I think now when you go for your SIA, I think they've added a day to a lot of the courses, and one of their days is solely first aid.
Yeah, I mean, like the upskilling. Don't get me wrong, I'm not against training to be professional, but like the upskilling course is just like, so what? We're going to come and do a course for a few hours, and then you expect that's going to be good for like the rest of the 3, 7, 6 years we're going to be in the industry, and that's. You know what I mean? It's what's the point?
Where do you sit? Talking of sort of that being it forever, where do you sit on? Let's say NASDO. So I'm obviously NASDO accredited, and I've passed my exam and that. That's the only time I'll ever have to take that exam. That's a lifetime achievement. Where do you sit on that? Because basically, what I could do is I could stop dog handling tomorrow. I could go and work, I don't know, as a banker for 10 years, and then I could come back and say, right, I'm going to become a dog handler again, and just walk straight in, get a dog, get licensed, and I'm away. 10 years of that, I haven't done any training. I haven't really been in the industry, so I've not kept up with anything. Where do you sit in terms of, obviously I'd have to get an SIA license again, but where would you sit on that being a lifetime achievement?
I think for the amount of hours you do doing that qualification, even though depends where you go, even though it is quite a tough course, you have to learn a lot, you have to take a lot on board, I still think you should get re-examined every year. That's my personal opinion, because again, it's that thing of, you know, if we're looking in equivalency, the dog section of security is like the arms section of the police, because we are the only section within security that is carrying something that could potentially cause serious harm to someone. And for people to just have the ability to have the qualification to just walk in and out of and never have to retrain on that again is kind of stupid.
I was kind of sitting on the fence. I don't agree on it being a lifetime achievement. I don't feel like if you pass it, that should be it forever. Every year, I think unofficially, you should maybe get an exam that's done by your trainer, but it's not a case of pass or fail. I think that every year you should maybe get a test, you do the test, and then your trainer can see where you need to improve, or where the trainer then knows, like, this person needs to have more talks about being a security guard, or this handler needs more talks about how to look after the dog, or whatever it is. So possibly every year you should get an exam, so the trainer then knows where he needs to help you in training. Maybe there should be an official pass or fail every 5 years or every 10 years or whatever it is. But I think if you haven't been a dog handler for any longer than a year, it should be a start back scratch, unless there's obviously a medical thing or whatever it is. Maybe you can get like a medical dispensation or whatever it is. But if you haven't been, let's say 3 years, so if you haven't been a dog handler for 3 years, when you come back, I think you should start from scratch. I just find it very strange that it is, like I say, a lifetime achievement, because I'm 34 now. Let's say I just went away, and then in my 40s, I was fed up with doing whatever I was doing. I'll just think, well, I'll just go back and do that. And I'll just pick a dog up, get a team certificate, and away I'll go again. You know what I mean? I think it's very strange.
Yeah, no, I do agree. I mean, I think if simple things could be put in place, like, you know, so similar to what you said then about, like, obviously you said don't do like a full examination every year. So it could be something as simple as, all right, so you get the qualification, the official qualification will last for 3 years, shall we say. So as long as your license lasts for your security, right? And then at the end of them 3 years, you will do a pass or fail test to see if you're up to scratch. But what I think they should be doing is, like, every year, as you said, go to a trainer and get a certificate from your trainer saying certified safe to work as a team. So get that certificate every year. So when you go to that final exam, you can show, along with your CT training, that every year you've been certified as safe to do the job, because you still hold the standards that you had when you did your first exam.
Yeah.
And something as simple as that put in place would dramatically raise standards as well. Yeah. There are really good dog handlers out there that know what they're doing, and, you know, the guys who are inexperienced but want to learn and want to do it properly. And then there are guys with chainsaw on leads.
Yeah. So you're you're talking different to a team certificate. So when you get re-teamed with the dog, you're not talking about that being the safe to work. You're talking about just a quickly written
Yeah, like a
multiple choice
separate.
exam. Yeah, it's
Yeah, yeah,
separate.
yeah, like a separate like so basically make it like a mini exam.
Mhm.
You go to your trainer and you go through this mini exam of the vital parts of it, right? Just to make sure general questions, subject knowledge about like the Guard Dogs Act and you know, Animal Welfare Act and all that sort of stuff, and then a little bit of general knowledge about security, then do some demonstrations, do a little bit of obedience, and then just say, right, everything you've just done was perfect, safe to work, you know. Because if you can't, like, it'll just be basic, but at the same time it's brilliant, because the more basic it is, if a handler comes to a trainer and can't do the basic without messing up, then he's not safe to work, you know.
Yeah, I think that's an important subject to kind of talk about, because like I say, I found it very strange, and I don't feel like it should be a lifetime achievement. I mean, there'll be lots of people that will say it should be because they've got it and they don't want to have to do another test again, you know what I mean? But I think if you're looking at it logically and you're looking at it from an outsider's point of view, is that it shouldn't be. But then again, if we take it back to driving test, unless you lose your license, you'll never have to take another driving test again. But a lot of people say that when you get to 60, you should take another driving test or whatever it is. In terms of security dog handling, you could come back when you're 70 and still be a dog handler, as long as you can still do the work. You could not have done your NASDO since you was 20, and you could just come back 50 years later and say, right, I want to be a dog handler again. And away we go. I think if you look at it logically, it shouldn't be a lifetime achievement. It should be, like I say, 3-5 years. You do like a pass or fail test. But I think it would be a good idea for trainers every year when it comes up to your re-team, is that they do give you a test that they've made up, just so that the trainer can see where you're sitting as well. Like if you're only seeing this handler once a month, at least then when you get on their re-team, you can see where this handler struggles or where they need to improve in certain stuff outside of handling a dog.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing to look at it as well, I mean, obviously we're talking about from the handler's point of view, with the qualification and stuff like that. Look at it from the courtroom point of view. Like if you have to attend court because there's been an incident, you've got to go up and say your piece, and you've got to show them that you were justified in what you've just done. You know, justified in your actions, and you've got to prove that you had the relative knowledge to make that decision. If you can hand them a bunch of certificates that say I've got over fucking 400 hours worth of training in the fucking past 2 years, and I've been certified safe to work for the past 2 years, your quid's in, because you've got a good paper trail, and a judge can look at that and go, all right, well, he's got ample amount of training. He's passed all his exams. He's certified safe to work. Okay, fair enough. Now now it goes on to the justifying part, but you've won the first battle.
Yeah.
So the stuff like that, people, unfortunately, people are lazy. You know what I mean? People will go and do the qualification and think, all right, that's it. Yes, because I don't have to do anything else now. I can just sit on a site with a dog that isn't trained and just rake the money in and go and sleep in my van.
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of people. I think there will be a lot of people that will say, like, why do I need to do that test? I know all about it. I've kept up to date with all my stuff. I think the easiest thing to say to that is, if the test is that easy, then it shouldn't be a problem. It's only going to take you 20 minutes. What's 20 minutes in a year just to prove that you do know it? It's very easy for people to turn around and say, well, I don't need to do that test because I know I'll know all the answers. Well, that's fine. Is 20 minutes, just go and do that and you can prove it. No, it's not a case of, it's not a case that you have to prove that you know everything. It's just a case of we just want to make sure.
Yeah, at the end of the day, people that you're very right. People will say that at any time, especially dog handlers, that they're one of the worst for it. The moment you say, "I want you to do this," and you're being examined, they will instantly jump into defensive mode and go, "Why have I got to do this?" And I know what I'm doing and stuff like that. And it's just like, and you're right. As soon as they say, "I know what I'm doing," it's just like, well, I've got a feeling that you don't, because if you did know what you're doing, you'd laugh.
Let's take it into handling a dog. If you just turned around to a dog handler and said, "I just want you to prove that you can do obedience with your dog," and they say, "Well, what do I need to prove to you that I can do obedience?" "I can do obedience." Well, if it's that easy, just get the dog out and do it.
Yeah. Just shut up and get on with it.
I just don't use the words. Just if someone says, not if someone, I'm not saying that you have to dance for people, you know what I mean? But if a trainer turns around to you and says, I want to see that you can be obedient with your dog, and you turn around and say, "Well, yeah, but I can do that." Well, just get the dog out, do 90 seconds of obedience. The trainer go, "Yeah, that's fine, job done." You don't need to argue the fact. So when it comes to, right, I just want you to do this 20 question exam. I want you to do this 20 question exam about being a dog handler. If they turn around and say, "Well, I don't need to do that because I've been a dog handler for 20 years." Well, if it's that easy, just do the 20 questions. It's going to take you 10 minutes. Don't argue the fact, just get on and do it.
Oh, mate, if you, one of my favorites, I've seen it with my trainer. You want to see a dog handler's ass twitch that hasn't been trained. You'll see it in their face when they turn around, when the trainer turns around and go, "I want to see an emergency stop."
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, instantly face lights up like a Christmas tree, and you're like, "Oh, you're in the shit. You ain't for training."